Good morning, everybody. We are here with the power couple, revamping your website, when to do it, how to do it. And I know that Herman and Martha were talking to me this morning, telling me how important it is to not think about your website about how much are you going to spend, but how much are you going to make? And how much is your time worth? So with no further ado, Mr. Herman and Martha Archer.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. So, revamping your website, when to do it and how to do it. So, I call myself more of the creator. I'm more of the visualizer, the designer, the website designer. Hermad is more of the numbers guy. You know, it gets more technical and more detailed with the strategy, and I'm more of the designer. So we just put together some photos. We love the chamber. So just to show you a little bit about us, we're your friendly ambassadors. Anytime we get a chance to talk about the chamber, we do it. So I want to put some photos there. So what do? At Smart Web Plans, we do two things really well. That's help you save time and money by avoiding many of the pitfalls associated with establishing your business online. There are a lot of different ways to do things, but what will save you time and money and a headache in the long run? So we're going to start with the random icebreaker, and then we're going to have you guys just maybe put the answer in the chat. So the question we want to ask you is, how many languages do you need to know to communicate with the rest of the world? Just put your answer in the chat. Let's see what answers we have. It might be a trick question. Okay, she said one. Tito's one. Patty, okay. All right. Body language, okay. All right, let's go to the answer. You guys are all correct. I thought it was gonna be hard. Hermod said 3 when I asked him, so that's why I picked this question. So with a little help from your smartphone, just one, Google Translate can repeat anything you say up to 90 languages. So good job, you guys. So that was just a random icebreaker. So we'll get started. 3 things I would like for you guys to take away today is I want you to be able to identify and recognize the warning signs of an outdated website and what changes you need to make sooner rather than later. I want you to be able to learn the most important questions to ask your web design agency and plan it out. Put together a plan for a successful redesign project from proposal to launch. So we're going to start off with 6 signs it's time for a new website.
Okay, so the first red flag that you want to look at is it doesn't work across multiple devices. You know, a responsive website today is, hands down a must. Most people have 2 or 3 devices on them at any given time in which they use to, consume content. So your website needs to be able to, stretch across these different platforms. They need to look good and clean and consistent no matter where the person's using it. So I'm actually going to talk a little bit more about that. I want you guys to kind of ask yourself like how people actually navigate on your site. There are different types of websites. Michelle, you might have a real estate website, or the chamber has a larger website that has a directory. You really want to try to pay attention to how the people come to your site, what they're coming there for, and then pay attention to what devices they'll probably, look at that content on. Are they going to use this in the car, on their phone? Are they going to use this while they're sitting on the couch looking at TV? Can I look at this on a tablet? Or is this more suitable for me to look at while I'm at the computer at work, or maybe I'm in my home office? The next thing you want to really pay attention to is it too hard to make changes? I've come across it all too often where, a business owner has a great business and everything's fine until something changes. Maybe they move addresses, they change the address. Maybe you don't provide a service anymore that you once did, or maybe you're adding new services. How do you let the people know if it's very hard to make a change to your website? A lot of people will, make a website, hand it over to someone and make them responsible for that. But at the end of the day, if you're going to be the business owner, you need to be able to make the changes that are important to your business. So, being able to really get through that is a really important and piece of your business. So right here, if you look on the screen, they have a couple of CMSs, and what those are called are content management systems. And this is typically where your website is placed. Usually you will design a website and you will place it on one of these platforms. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen one of the names before. WordPress is super, super common. But what a content management system allows you to do is exactly what it says. It allows you to manage your content. So this is text that you have, this is photos, this is video, image, music, images, whatever you have. This is the one-stop shop where you want to manage that and really make it easy for your prospects, your clients, your customers, whoever's coming to your website. You want to make this content, you want to arrange it in a way where it clearly expresses, who you are, what you do, and then it gives them the opportunity to move on to the next step. So here are a couple things I want you to ask yourself. Does your CMS or your content management system actually work for you? I've seen a lot of different brokerages or different companies. They kind of hand most businesses a structure or a platform. They say, hey, this is a good platform for you, but you really, as a business owner, have to sit down and say, hey, can I use this system for my business? Does it really work for me? Is it gonna extend and last throughout the lifetime of my business? If it doesn't, I would really sit down with my designer and say, hey, give me some more options. I need this to last, because a website isn't something that's temporary. It's something that's long term. You're going to add a lot of content to this. You're going to be updating this a lot. So you really want to make sure that it fits you. Let's move on. The third thing, it is too hard for users to do much of anything. Now, this is in web design for me. I think this is one of the most overlooked aspects of a website, but we all do this. So think about it. And I'm pretty sure you guys can all imagine, doing this. You go on Google, you're looking for something. Let's say you're looking for a red pair of shoes. You go to a website and it doesn't have a red pair of shoes on it. What do most people do? They just hit the back button and you come off of that site because it didn't have what you want. So this actual, for the web design world, there actually is a term for that. It's called a bounce rate. And a bounce rate basically occurs when someone comes to your website and they just leave automatically because what they wanted to do wasn't there. So you must pay attention to how easy it is for people to do things on your website. If you go to a website and it takes too long for you to find the answer or make the next step, you're definitely going to leave. So when you're putting together your website, you have to make sure it actually speaks to the audience that you're putting this in front of. You have to make sure that that content is able to connect with them right away, because instantly your website, you don't have 3 seconds. People literally come to the site. They want to see what they want to see. They want to see a solution to their problem, or a piece of content that they can at least engage with. So if you don't have that right up front, you're going to lose them 100% of the time. So that's one of the things to consider. Here's a couple questions that we might want to ask ourselves while you're building this website, when you're really looking at your website to see if this is if people can actually do if it's actually functioning in the way that it's supposed to function. So you ask yourself first, is anything actually broken? I'm pretty sure you've gone to a site before and you go to what we call a broken link, or you've maybe seen a page, it comes up, it says 404 error. That's just technical terms for someone didn't make this page right. So also, you know, when you're going through this, you want to look for those immediate broken errors. Then you want to start to think a little deeper. You want to ask yourself about the function and the navigation. When I come to the menu of my website, does my menu have everything that a potential prospect would need to make the next step forward? And that comes down to simple things like, is there a tab right there at the front, the home tab? Does that tell who I am? What do I do? Is there a about us tab where, you know, the client or the prospect can come and learn a little bit more about who I am individually and what I do, so they might want to move forward with me? What's my secret process? A lot of websites will have what you call a gallery tab or a medias tab, where they can actually give testimonials and give people a visualization of the things that they do. These are the important things you have to ask yourself when you're talking about, is my website functional? You know, can it actually move a prospect or somebody who's interested in my product or service to the next step? And if you're online and you're engaging with anyone, that should always be, you know, your number one goal, is to get them to the next step, whether it's a sale or just a part of your business that simply makes it easier. You know, that's one thing that's important to think about when you're talking about function of a website. It doesn't always have to be tied to money. You know, I know in the web design space, it is typical for an agency or a designer to say, hey, you know, I can build you a website that makes you X amount of money or brings in X amount of leads a month. But when it comes to functionality of the website, you actually have to ask yourself, you know, is it working in a way that saves me time too? You know, your website isn't just there to make money. Sometimes your time is your money. So you have to think, hey, does this website have little things along the way that can save me time? The biggest example of this, and you'll see this on any major business website, is frequently asked questions. You want to save some time? Put the answers to questions that people are going to ask you. That's a way you can turn this website into a functional place for your customers. And the last thing I'm going to really hit on here in terms of function is content. You'll hear this in the web design space a lot: content, 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 or the phrase content is king. Um, I hate that it's so cliche sometimes, but it is true. Content is king. So when you're thinking about the function of the website, also think about the content. Is it functional? Does this content speak in a way that moves the process along? So let's move on. Number 4, the looks. Now this is where Martha gets to shine. I'm not always the greatest in this area, but I definitely think that it's a very big portion and should always play a role in your decision making when you're really considering your website. Does it look old and outdated? And I don't really have to go too deep to paint an image, but you guys remember sites 15 years ago. They weren't very flashy. They didn't have much video. They didn't have great photos. Most of it was very block. I mean, if you were in the web design space and actually building websites 10, 15 years ago, I can actually tell you um, there was a block format. You know, the web design used to just actually be, you know, more of a blocky thing. But, you know, as we moved along in time, people decided to add style and colors and themes to things. So those are the things you want to take advantage of. You know, people notice those things, just like your cell phone updates and the, you know, the background, the theme on your phone updates. You should also be updating your website to match, you know, match the times. You don't want to put out an image that's old and has old functionality, because this ultimately represents you. your brand, your product, your service. And if it looks outdated, then your customers will think it's outdated, and you put the opportunity for you to lose a lot of trust with people who are searching for you online. Most people will go through at least 3 or 4 websites, when they're looking for a specific product. So you don't want to be that one site that looks old, you don't want to be that one site that's kind of hard to navigate or hard to see things, or you don't want to be the site and say, why does their text look like that? So there's a lot of trends. There are always a lot of new themes that are being put out there. The web design world is really big, and it's always being updated. It's very competitive. So there's no reason for you to ever really accept an old look. Always push for a new look. The search engines reward you for it. They appreciate the updates, and your potential clients will reward you for it. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Now, a few things that we can ask ourselves about, the overall look of our site is, does it have like a positive first impression? And this is a easy metric for anybody to kind of measure. You can just ask a friend in this situation. They don't necessarily have to be a professional. You can say, hey, how does this look first glance? Does it turn you off? Does it remind you of 90s Nokia? Like, you have to really kind of push this out in front of people. Social media is also another great way. This is something you can engage your clients with, and just build a little traction. You can actually post things online and say, hey, how does this look? Start looking for feedback from the people that will actually engage with this stuff, because it matters. I've always looked at the larger brands when it comes to, being up to date and the imagery, because they control a lot of what we see. If you look at the brands like Amazon, Walmart, they have huge companies, lots of customers. They don't need to really market themselves so much, but yet you'll always see them on the curb, of the latest technology. How can we get out there? How can we look new? How can we keep our image fresh? So even as a small business, I think the same thing is important. You need to look at your branding, really come up with a strategy that speaks to your customer. Okay, then we can actually go to the next slide. So the fifth thing here is it unclear what you do? I want to say this is more of a typical thing for a website. It's really easy when you're building a website to kind of get all over the place. Like I said earlier, the website is your content management system. So a lot of times you will have tons of content and tons of pieces about your business inside of this website. And sometimes it can get unclear, who you are, what you do. So one of the things I do like to highlight with any client of mine, or anybody who I'm, just giving general information to, I say, when you build out your home page and you build out that first page to the website, your message of who you are and what you do is most important. The only time this is not the most important thing is if you have a golden child product, something that maybe has been on Shark Tank and it's exploding everywhere. That is the only time where people generally don't care about the brand. They just want the product. It's just that so beloved. But any other time, the first thing that you really want to do with your customer is say, here I am, this is what I do. Never make this mistake, because this is probably the most important content when it comes to the website. Not only does it inform the client or the potential client who you are, but on the bigger end of this, you're going to have search engines that are paying attention to your website and the content that you post on it. And the way they're going to rank you and position you online is by the message and the overall tone that you put out on your website. So what does this mean? This means if this is a real estate website, then this real estate website needs to clearly say that I do real estate. It needs to say what type of real estate I do, what type of services I offer, and which area I do this in. This is important not just for, like I said, for your client, but just for the larger people too, like Google. When Google looks you up, who are you? What do you do? Where are you located? What service should I point to you directly? Not only is Google doing this, Facebook is also doing this. And there are, I would say, at least 400 other directories that we typically post our clients' information to that also collect the same data. So you want to make sure that it's very clear, it's clear across all the channels that you have, and it's consistent. So here's a couple things about that you can ask yourself along the way to make sure you're, actually on track to positioning yourself and making sure that the information that you're putting out there is accurate. We don't necessarily have to go through all of these, but I'm going to point out some that I think is the most important to any individual. The third one on this list, it says, does my site have the most accurate and valuable information about my business? This is super important. Google scans this. It's almost like the tagline of your business. So on your homepage, you want to make sure you have the most accurate information. And one of the reasons where I'm going to hone in on accurate is because, like I said, your site is always being crawled, not just by Google, but Facebook and a host of other directories. And if your information is not up to date and it isn't accurate, what happens is when they scan the site and they see two sets of information, they get confused. And you're penalized for that. You will start to see, your rankings fall down. You'll find yourself on that third and fourth page when you could be on the first page. And the clearing cut problem there will be, accuracy. It's just the information isn't clear. We don't know who you are exactly. We don't know what you do exactly. And there's so many different pieces of information about you on the internet. We can't come up with a concise profile for you. So that's what I would really do when it comes to really making sure your website looks up to date. Also, the last one. Are my company's best photos and videos on this site? You definitely want to do this. It's all about engagement when you're talking about online prospects. You want to keep them engaging with you, your brand, and your business as long as possible. So the best way to do that is just like every other large platform. You give them content that they'll consume. And right now, the two most consumable pieces of content that you'll find online is photos and videos. It's literally feeding the YouTubes, the Instagrams, the Facebooks. Those channels run primarily off of photos and videos. So you can take advantage of this same power on your website. You can even post the same videos. If you have a video that you post onto a YouTube account and it goes crazy and people love it, you need to have that video on your website. Not only does it pull traffic, but it's a great piece of content for anybody who comes there. It helps the search engines identify your business with that content, and it gives a stronger tone of what you do. So that's really what I'm going to say about updating the website. The next thing really is, and this one is the last one, but you never want to leave this one out because this is the reason you end up getting a new website, and it's performance. At the end of the day, if the website does not perform, you will always find yourself in a bad position where you either want to change your website or you're gonna, have to go and raise your hand to get help from someone, because at the end of the day, the website is meant to perform. It's not. I've kind of used this phrase before, and I hope it kind of sticks for some people. I say the website is not a digital business card. I know we're all tempted to kind of just put the website up, put the categories that you're listed in, and put a small tag about what you do on the website. But that's more of what your business card does. And you can hand those out to people. The website, it's actually meant to generate money, engage, potential clients. And ultimately, it should be saving you time and money in your business. So you have to look at the performance of this website, start paying attention to the metrics of it. And a good way to start this, I didn't want to dig too deep into this because it gets a little complicated, but a good way is to just simply, when you put your website up, is attach Google Analytics. Google Analytics will show you right off the bat a lot of your performance metrics. It shows you, what type of audience is coming to your website, how often are they coming to your website, and how long do they typically stay on your website. Those are different type of metrics that you can start to use when you start thinking about your website to really measure it up in terms of performance. The website itself can be a lot of things for some businesses. Some businesses I've seen build a website that is a pure lead and revenue driven magnet. Doesn't do much but make money. People come, they click, they buy. But for other businesses, I've seen it become almost as a filtering process to find the right prospect or the right client. So with your website, you have to kind of pick out a few numbers and figure out what those numbers mean to you in terms of improving your business. Is it leads? Is leads an important thing in your business right now? Is a quality referral an important thing in your business right now? You really have to just look at those numbers and really add it up in terms of performance. Now, here's a couple questions you can really ask yourself when it comes to the performance of your website to see where you stack up against other websites or other people in your space. First one being, can customers find my website? This is almost a no-brainer for most businesses. You have a Google account, people are going to look it up, and you want to know, where does my website fall in that ranking? When someone looks up, a chiropractor or a real estate agent or a web designer, where am I falling in the pack? Am I on the first page, or am I on the 10th page? Can people find me when they look for my name? Sometimes you have a common business name or a common service, and we can't find you even listed under your own name. So you want to really ask yourself, can people find me? And just like I was mentioning earlier, the best way to kind of do that is, once you set your website up, is go ahead, connect Google Analytics. Also, if you create a Google My Business profile, that's another great way to kind of track what's going on with your website. You can almost match those two numbers up sometimes. You can say, hey, this is how many people looked at my website in my Google Analytics profile, and you can match that number up with how many people might have actually visited your Google My Business profile. Those two numbers will tell you exactly how many people went to your Google profile and clicked through on your website.
10 questions to ask your web design partner. Now that you have the answers to if you need a revamp for your website, here are the next questions you would ask. You'll ask them questions such as, how long will it take to create a new website? You want to know the timeline. You don't want to just say, hey, yeah, I'll get your website up in a few weeks. No, let them have a plan. Let them know how long it'll take to actually go through this process with you, create a launch date. How often do you hit your target launch date? That's a question you can ask them to just kind of gauge to see if you'll stay on track. A few more questions. I won't read all of them. What's included and what's not included in the cost estimate for my website? A lot of times, different businesses need different features. So you want to ask them, hey, if I need this for my website, is this going to be extra? What's your approach to responsive web design? Every website should be responsive. It's the standard industry. So that's something you want to ask them off the top. What web standards and best practices do you follow? There's things such as being ADA compliant. You want to make sure that people who may have disabilities will be able to go on your website and easily navigate and find the information as well. Who will be working on my website? Will it be you? Do you have other teammates? Who will I be in direct contact with as we go through this process? And then proprietary, third party, or open source CMS. Where will my site be built? What do you recommend? That's important to know so you can see if you're able to manage that type of platform. How to set yourself up for a successful website design. Now that we have that information, it's time to set yourself up for success.
So really, when you talk about setting yourself up for a successful redesign or a build on a website, one of the most important things, and the first thing I like to sit down and talk about, is the goals of the actual website. You know, just like we were talking about whether the site functions or whether people can actually do something on the site, a good way to start with, you know, what making sure that actually happens is setting it down in your goals and objectives. What will this website, you want to ask yourself, what will this website do for my business? You know, that's where your goals should start. And I don't know if you guys have heard of, you know, SMART goals, but that's something you can kind of incorporate into this. You know, make sure you have something that's measurable, it's time bound, you know, add these little things to your goals when you're setting up your website. And this kind of makes the product, the website itself, once it comes out, it makes it a lot more functional when you get to the end of your design, versus, you know, coming in, you're not really sure about the goals and the objectives of the website, and the design is kind of what you want. When you don't get those real goals and objectives in there, you get the design, but you have no functionality. The users don't get the experience that they ultimately are looking for, and you often don't display who you are and what you do very well. So the goals is the first thing you want to kind of start with when you get to this project.
Call to actions. So on your website, it should be very clear what you are asking the person to do. Are you asking them to book a consultation, pick up the phone, request a quote? You want it to be very prominent and easy to identify on your website when it comes to putting the actions there. So you want to have a clear goal with the objective, identify the primary actions you want them to take, and it'll help drive profitable actions to your business. Next, photography. You want to have high-end photography. You want it to be of you. Stock images are okay to start off with if you don't have photos, but people always want to see you. They want to know what's going on. Have you ever posted a picture that wasn't of you versus one that was you on social media, and you see the engagement skyrocket when it's actually of you? People want to be able to connect with you. They want something that's authentic. So that's very important when it comes to your website, is the photography. Make sure you have certain photos. Create a shot list, something that's like, okay, I have photos that show about me, about what I do, about my products. You want to create this inventory of photos.
The next thing is content. And I mentioned it earlier, you know, content is king. It's the phrase that everybody uses, but it's critical. I always challenge business owners to think about the one thing that keeps, you know, that all devices have in common. What is your phone, your laptop, your computer, your email, what do all of this have in common? And it's content. People engage with the internet. We use all of the devices, and it all runs off content. If you don't have content in the email, there would be no email at all. So you have to really drill down into what you're going to put out there on your website. You know, identify what's important. one of the things I'm going to point out in this section where we won't really dive into, because we're trying to stay more in the web design and not into the Google, but when we get down to your content, start to think about Google, because Google is actually going to rank you and position your website based off of the content that's on it. So when you're thinking about your content, also think about the words that will be scanned on your website, the words that will represent your business online, because there are only so many of them. You know, the average web page has, I believe, what, in an average text block, you're going to have 250 to, I would say, 1,000 words tops. So you want to pick out the words that really stick to who you are, what you do, and it's going to tie you ultimately to the prospect that you're looking to find online.
Style and design preferences. Finally, let's talk about the actual design. So when you're designing a website and you ask your client, hey, what do you want it to look like? You should have an answer. You should research online or Google, look up your competitors and say, okay, hey, this is what I like about this site. This is what I hate about this site. Creating a list so that you can share with the web designer to say, hey, this is some things I'm interested in having in my website. Here's what I think it'll make it more successful and resonate. So you want to ask them about features as well. What features can I add to my site? Can I put a form so that people can fill it out or book an appointment with me? So those are the different things that you really want to focus on. You want to look at your competitors, see what they're doing, see what's working for them, see what you think could be improved, and create that as a more of an inspiration for your own website so that you can hand that off to the designer so that they don't come back and just hand you something that doesn't really make sense. So that concludes today's webinar. We have a freebie for you guys. If you go on our website, you can download 5 steps to a winning website project where you can get more information, learn the secrets. Some of the things we talked about will be in there, and we have some new things as well for you to just download, enjoy, and get started on a successful website project. So now we're going to go to our Q&A. If you have any questions, ask away.
I have a question. I have a website, obviously, and it has a form where people can contact me for more information. There's a couple call to actions on there, but I get a lot, like for every one customer I get that fills it out and actually wants information, I get like a lot of either spammers or people offering to write blogs for me, or you can tell it's just like a robo. Is there a way to block that or anything I could do?
Well, actually, you can add something called like a Recaptcha, where they have to answer a certain question. Maybe say, what's 1 + 5? And if they don't put 6, then more likely it's just a robot who's just throwing information onto your website. So you can kind of block that a little bit and make them take certain actions to make sure that they're human, because most of this stuff that fill out your form are bots.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
If you need to create a website that has like the, you know how like when people go to the website, you get an automated hi, thank you for visiting the website. I have no idea what that's called, by the way, but something that can auto message.
Like a pop-up?
And I can also see, yes, thank you. And I can also see who's visiting the website. Is that something that you guys would do?
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of in your CMS, and that's the content management system. A lot of content management systems, even the ones that we work with, have an option for a pop-up, which is the feature that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's usually, yeah, you kind of set the settings for how you want that to engage with the customer, whether it be a first-time visitor, you know, maybe 30 seconds on the page. You kind of set the parameters.
So there's different ones. I guess my question is also like some type of text messaging that you can also do. Like if somebody has a question or something, it could go live. Is that another thing that you guys can do? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of features. Yeah.
We live in a microwave era. So if you're not there, somebody else will be fast enough.
Right. And you can add certain things like chats or things like that where somebody comes on your website, maybe a chat message pops up and say, hey, how can I help you? And there are certain ways that you could get that text message once they start to reply on your website to, engage with them so that they don't leave and stuff like that.
Perfect.
Yeah, they call that the term